So, The Power of I Am, A Journey to Self was God's idea, not mine. He spoke to my heart 3 years before I actually published the book and asked me to write a book. And my response was, why? I had never written a book. I never dreamt of being an author. I had no plans of ever delving into being a published author. But after about a year of going back and forth in my head of how to and who's going to help me and what's the plan, I'm a very strategic person. I like to be able to have a plan before me. God was like, just start. And so I went to a Starbucks and I sat down and I opened up my laptop and I decided to just start writing. And when I thought about if God asked me to write a book, which means he wants me to inspire somebody, the first thing that came to mind was my trial when I was in the hospital and I was disabled, and the journey, the very unique journey that I went through to get to the other side of that. I knew that he wanted me to share that with the world. And so that is some of the meat and potatoes of the book, but there are so many other different stories that I kind of weave into the book to help to inspire people. And so really the purpose of The Power of I Am is just to inspire the world and teach them how to be powerful through God's help. So the power of I am could mean two things. It could literally mean the power of I am meaning God, but it could also mean the power of who you are, the power in saying and claiming who you are. And so that was my original thought when it came to the power of I am. It was reclaiming who you are and using your power to do good in the world. But of course, in order to really be powerful, you need to tap into a source that's greater than you, and that is God. And so that's the meaning of the book. A significant detail of the book would be my stay in the hospital, my journey of being disabled and then coming out on the other side of that. I happened to be at work one day and there was a strange pain that just appeared, felt like a muscle cramp. So I went to my doctor later that afternoon and they agreed it's a severe muscle cramp, and it escalated from a severe muscle cramp to sciatica to bursitis to a complete mystery. It took 4 days in order for me to be admitted into an ER. I had to fight because everyone felt like, oh, it's just something simple, it's fine, it's sciatica, it'll go away on its own. It's bursitis, I'll give you a shot in the hip, it'll be fine, it'll go away. But nothing ever rendered any sort of real care or support. When I pulled up to the third ER visit, I sat in the car. I was completely disabled by this point. I could not walk. My mother went out into the hospital to get the nurses to help put me into the wheelchair so I can get into the car. But while she was gone, I heard God speak to me, and he said, whatever you do, do not get kicked out of this hospital. And I took it exactly for what he said. I didn't question who it was. I knew it was God speaking to me. I knew that I had to follow through, and I also understood very completely that I could not go home. And so I was taken into the hospital, back in the ER. The nurse practitioner began to pretty much repeat what other doctors were saying. Oh, it's just sciatica, you'll be fine, it'll go away on its own. And at that moment, I remembered what God had told me. He said, whatever you do, do not get kicked out of this hospital. And so I just had an out-of-body experience, and I let this lady have it. I told her, in the most kindest but very direct way, that I need care and there's something wrong with me. And if I were rolled in here half dead, you would take me seriously, but you're not. You are not taking me seriously. And you also haven't drawn any blood. And when I said that, this light bulb went off in her head, like, oh, well, we didn't draw any blood. After all the doctors that I had seen over the past 4 to 5 days, no one had drawn blood. And so it was the blood that actually allowed me to be admitted into the hospital. There was something wrong with my blood when they drew the blood. And so later that night, they didn't admit me, they allowed me to be in observation in ER. So it just means they watch over you overnight to see if you progress or if you get better, to see if they really want to fully admit you. And later that night, I had a very severe, what I think was a fever. So severe that it felt like someone had set me on fire. Like someone had millions of needles poking me all over my body and had poured gasoline over me and just set me on fire. I couldn't move. And it was that fever that changed the clock, and it just changed everyone's demeanor around me, where I couldn't get help. I now all of a sudden had a whole new doctor, and everybody was asking me questions. They ran millions, all sorts of tests. and they finally admitted me into the hospital. And so I shared that journey of what it was like, first of all, to get into the hospital, knowing that there's something wrong with me, knowing that I am disabled. I should be able to get up and walk, but I cannot. And then just having to fight to get somebody to hear me and to listen to me. And so part 2 of that journey is getting care in the hospital. It took 5 more days in order for them to actually find what was wrong with me. And then from there, a plan of care that took place in the hospital and then at home. And so I was in a wheelchair for a total of 4 months. Share that journey because it taught me, I felt like God was teaching me that he was the only person that I could lean on. I couldn't count on people. Before that time, whatever a doctor said, I trusted. I didn't, go against any sort of authority. It was whatever you told me, that's what it was. But to have so many doctors see me, and I know that some of them were trying their best, some of them were just kind of moving kind of fast and just wanted to move on to the next patient. But he showed me that he was the only person that I could trust. I can't put all my hope and faith into human beings. I really do have to trust him. So there was one particular part of that journey after I was admitted into the hospital, and I now have a team of doctors trying to figure out what is actually wrong with me. My first set of CT scan and MRI scans came back completely clean. There was nothing there. And so the doctor that was assigned to me came into the room and said, "Hey, we have your scans. They're clear. There's nothing there. Are you a sensitive person?" And when he asked me that question, I felt attacked. I felt like this is a doctor who's supposed to care, but he doesn't care. I felt like he was accusing me of pretending, basically. And at this time, I'm 24 years old. I have plans and things that I want to do on the weekend. I have a life. I don't want to be in the hospital, but here I am because I am in so much great pain that I need your help. And you're asking me, basically, am I pretending? And I looked at him, I said, "No." I said, "I'm not a sensitive person. I don't know why you don't see anything on the scans. I just know that I'm in pain and I can't get up and I need help." And so he said to me, "Well, you're gonna have to do another round of scans." And immediately tears came up in my eyes and I just couldn't believe it because at this moment I couldn't stand up straight. So if I can't stand up straight, I can't lay flat. And in order to do a CT scan or MRI scan, you have to lay completely flat on the bed, and that was excruciating for me. And so through both exams, I screamed and cried the entire time because it just hurt so bad. And so when he said that to me, it wasn't that I didn't want to, find out what was wrong. It was just that I'm gonna have to lay down flat again. And he looked at me and he saw my disappointment and he said, "Well, if you don't get the scans, I'm gonna have to let you go." And when he said that, I remember what God had said to me: "Whatever you do, do not get kicked out of this hospital." And so I said, I can't go home because I know I hadn't received care. They haven't even diagnosed me with whatever is going on in my body. And so I reluctantly agreed. I surrendered and I agreed to scans that I didn't want to do but knew I needed to do. So later that afternoon, I underwent the CT scan and the MRI scan, and it was awful. It was horrible. It was excruciating. When I came back to my room, probably now this is 1 a.m. in the morning, I just felt defeated. I felt depleted. I felt like God didn't care. I felt like he had abandoned me. He saw everything that was going on, but there was no help. And so the next day, I'm just laying there. I didn't really have any thoughts in my head. I was just kind of like a vegetable, just laying there with no hope and just didn't know what was going to happen. And suddenly I got a knock at the door, and it was a new doctor. I'd never seen him. He kind of poked his head in. He asked if he could come in, and I said, "Sure, you can come in." I didn't have, I wasn't excited. It was like, whatever, you can come in if you want to. He came in and he introduced himself. He said he was the head of the infectious disease team. He said that he and his team had been studying my blood over the past couple of days and that there was bacteria in it and it had been growing on its own. I remember him saying that my blood smelled like butterscotch. And I remember kind of in my head thinking, well, at least my blood smells good. But then he said to me, I have my team with me. Do you mind if they come in and we ask you some questions? And I said, okay. And 15 people walked into the room, and they had notepads and pens and white coats. And as soon as I just looked at the room and I saw these 15 people standing in my room, I said to myself, I am healed. I knew whatever was about to happen, God had already was on it. And so they began to ask me questions, all sorts of questions that no one had asked me before, about what I had eaten, where I had been, and what did I drink earlier that day. And they, the female doctor examined me personally, privately, just to see the mobility of my leg. No one had touched my leg over the course of those couple of days, and all the doctors I had seen, no one touched my leg. But she came and she fully examined my leg, and I just knew, I said, these people are going to heal me. So once she was done examining me, the lead doctor comes back in and he says to me, we're going to continue to study your blood, but if you're okay with it, we'd like to take you on as our patient. And I say, yes. Yes, I'll be your patient. And so he told me that he would get the results of my scans and left out. And as soon as he left out, I just began to cry, and I felt so bad because earlier that day I was mad at God. I was mad at him. I was yelling at him in my head, saying how much you didn't care. You see what I'm going through. They're making me go through all these scans. Now I'm being accused of pretending. And I just really felt like he wasn't there for me. But when they left out of the room, I felt so much guilt. And I immediately apologized to him. And I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for not believing you. When I had that moment, I remembered all of a sudden that there was this phlebotomist that was coming into my room in the middle of the night, throughout the day, multiple times a day, drawing my blood. I never paid attention to her. But the entire time, she kept coming back for more blood because she was sending it to the infectious disease team. And so during the period of time where I was waiting for the first round of scans to come back, but no one knew what was wrong, the infectious disease team was already working and just trying to figure out when was the right time to come and tell me that they were interested in taking me on as a patient. And so I learned that just because you don't see God moving in the physical, like right in your face, does not mean that God is not moving. He's constantly doing things and working things out for your good, sometimes behind your back, until, he's ready to reveal his plan. And so that was a significant lesson that I learned just about how powerful God is. He doesn't move like we do, doesn't speak like we do. His thoughts are just way higher than ours. His plans are way greater than ours. He is constantly moving, breathing, existing in ways that we could never imagine. And so that story is so powerful to me, and I hope that it's so powerful to all the readers that actually read the book. I think before, when God told me write the book, I felt like I needed a plan. I needed to understand, well, what is an outline of writing a book? And then, how do you get it published? And who does the cover? And who publishes it? I needed all of these answers. But when God said, just let go and you just start writing. That's all you need to do. I learned that in every step of the process of getting the book out into the world, he gave me what I needed when I was ready to receive it. So I started writing the book. Okay, God, I'm done writing the book. It took 3 years. and then I said, okay, well, God, I need to get the book published. And then as soon as I said that prayer, because the book was done, he sent someone to help me publish the book and send me into the right direction. And even just in that story of, okay, God, I need help, but God not giving you the help that you need in the beginning, but when you're ready to receive the help, how he moved in that way for me was the person that helped me, ushered me into the right direction to get the book published. I had met her maybe 6 or 7 years prior, well before God had ever told me that I was going to write a book or needed to write a book. I met her very randomly at a conference. I was at work, and it was a conference that had nothing to do with writing a book, but she was at a conference, an author's conference, that just happened to be at the same hotel that my current job was hosting a conference. And my mom made it a point to allow us to meet. She had met the young lady. She had walked over to the book conference side of the hotel and just met the young lady and thought she was so great, and she had self-published her own book. And she kept texting me and calling me, you need to meet her. And I'm like, okay, I'm working, just give me a second. But eventually, I just kind of felt like my mom's not letting up. So I went and I met her. And in the moment when I met her, I don't know if anyone knows what it feels like when you feel like God is moving in a moment, but you don't know what God is doing, but you feel like this is a special moment. Something about this moment matters. When I met her, I felt that. I felt there's a reason why I'm meeting her, and I don't know why I'm meeting her, but it's gonna mean something, and I don't know when. And so fast forward to many years later, when I was driving home from work, I had said the prayer, God, I'm done writing the book. Now I need help getting the book out into the world. I got home and just happened to scroll on my phone and look at my emails, and I got a mass email from this particular young lady who was starting her own publishing company and was looking for authors to get their book self-published. And I just started laughing. I said, wow, really, God? I was not expecting him to answer like 2 hours later. And so immediately I emailed her back and I said, it's just so odd that you send this email out today because I just finished writing my book and I need help getting it published. And so she was the pathway. God used her as the pathway to help me get this book out into the world. God did many things to help me get this book out to the world, including money, because money is something I didn't have. I didn't know the budget for it because I never published a book. I didn't know what to save for. I didn't understand that there should be a photo shoot and then these should have a book celebration. So through the entire process of just getting this book out into the world, I learned to trust God. And I learned that I don't have to have plan A through Z when he first gives you something. Sometimes you just need to do step 1, and that's it. And when you're done with step 1, then you can do step 2. And God will open up the doors that you need at the time that you're ready to receive it in order for it to come to pass. I want my readers to learn to love themselves through this book. I want them to understand that power does not come from your boss. It doesn't come from your family. It doesn't come from your education. It does not come from your best friend, your spouse. It comes from God. But you have to be able to sit down and say, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing. And in order for me to get to a place where I feel like I have peace that surpasses all understanding, I cannot live this life by myself, and I cannot be self-righteous, and I cannot direct my own path. And so the power of I am, like I said, is twofold. It is the power of God, but also the power of knowing who you are. And when you know who you are, you know who you're not. And when you know who you're not swayed into doing things that you shouldn't be doing or living in a way that you have no business in living. And so the purpose of this book, it is to change you. It is to transform the way you think about the world, the way you think about yourself. It is to introduce you to God if you don't know him. It is to reintroduce you to him if you've given up on him. And sometimes it's just to provide clarity, give you a sign that you're on the right path, that what you've been experiencing has been on purpose. God does everything on purpose. He doesn't make any mistakes. I don't care how bad you have messed up your life. There is no place, there's no hole in the wall, there's no low place in this world where you can go where God cannot reach and pull you out of. And so I hope that every person that reads The Power of I Am, A Journey to Self, really does understand just how powerful God is. My favorite chapter of the book is the power of prayer. Prayer is something that so many of us overlook because we think it's so simple. I just say a prayer. It doesn't take much, but prayer is so incredibly powerful. It can change your life completely from beginning to end. You can transform your whole entire life just by going to God. Prayer says to God that you are in tune with him. He loves when you come to him first instead of going to other people and asking for advice. And there's nothing wrong with having, a close set of friends that you actually trust. But going to God, the person that actually knows the way and knows where he's taking you, that's the source that you need to tap into. And so when you pray, you are praying to the person who knows, not the person who is guessing. My Auntie Janet, who has passed away, she taught me a lot about prayer. She had a relationship with Christ like no one had ever seen. Growing up, I could tell it was something different about her. I was like, she's a true believer. I don't have that yet, but she has that. She just talked about God as if he were her best friend. And when she passed away, it altered everything in my life. I didn't understand why she had to leave, because to me, she left way too soon. And in my prayers with God and just trying to seek clarity as to why did she leave? Why did she have to pass away? Why is she not here? And his response to me was just more like, my ways are just higher than your ways. And sometimes you're not going to understand everything. But I can say that her passing away caused me to be more inquisitive about God. And it really was the starting point of me getting to know God for myself. So her passing actually pushed me into being a true believer in Christ. And so I just encourage everyone out there to pray. Pray for yourself. Pray for others. It is okay to pray for strangers that you see on the street, people you see struggling. Send a prayer. Prayer actually changes so much, and it is so incredibly powerful. Please don't overlook how powerful it really is. So you can purchase a copy of my book by visiting idasangel.com. That is my website, and it houses all the different ways a person can purchase the book. If you are a digital reader, you have many options to download the book and read it on your iPad or your iPhone. If you are I like the book in my hand person like myself, you can purchase a hard copy online at idasangel.com. It's also available on Amazon. And if you are someone that likes to listen to books while you're cleaning or while you're driving, you can also download it on Spotify, Audible, and other audio versions.